That night, the old house on Blackwood Lane felt less like a home and more like a tomb. Elias, a skeptic to his core, had taken a dare to spend the night alone in the abandoned manor, a place where local legend claimed the spirit of a vengeful governess, the Pale Watcher, still resided. The air inside was heavy, smelling of dust and decay. As midnight approached, a chilling silence fell, so profound it pressed against his eardrums. Elias sat in the drawing room, a single flickering candle, his only ally against the suffocating darkness. Then a whisper, faint, dry, like crumbling parchment, yet distinctly female. He never deserved it, Elias scoffed, his heart doing a jittery drumbeat in his chest. Just the wind, he muttered, but the windows were sealed shut. He stood, forcing a bravado he didn't feel, and walked to the hallway. The floorboards creaked under his weight, but then a new sound joined, a soft, rhythmic dragging from the floor above. Not heavy furniture, but something lighter, softer, moving across bare wood. He looked up, and his breath hitched. At the top of the grand staircase, silhouetted against the weak moonlight, filtering through a tall window, stood a figure. Tall, impossibly thin, dressed in the tattered remains of a white Victorian gown. Her head was bowed, hidden by a mess of dark, tangled hair. It wasn't the sight that froze him. It was the intense, crippling cold that radiated from her. A sudden, supernatural drop in temperature that made the hairs on his arms stand rigid. The figure didn't move, but the dragging sound continued. And then Elias saw why. The Pale Watcher wasn't walking. Her feet were gone, replaced by bloody, mangled stumps that scraped against the wood as she glided down the steps. Elias stumbled back, knocking the candle over. Darkness swallowed the room. He could hear his own frantic gasps, and then a sound right behind him. A sound that was nothing less than a horrific guttural gasp for air. He spun, his eyes desperately trying to pierce the gloom. Nothing but the smell of stale metallic blood was overwhelming. A voice, now right next to his ear, no longer a whisper, but a wet, ragged sigh, filled the space. I found his eyes, you know. I kept them. Something cold and long, like a decaying finger, brushed the back of his neck. Elias didn't scream. He couldn't. His mind fractured under the sheer terror. He ran straight for the front door, clawing at the lock. As he finally burst into the cold night air, he risked a single desperate glance back. In the faint light from the window, he saw her standing in the doorway. The Pale Watcher. Her head was no longer bowed. Where her eyes should have been were two empty black sockets. But they weren't entirely empty. Inside each socket, pressed against the back of the bone, was a perfectly preserved human eyeball, staring out with a glassy, unblinking malevolence that was meant just for him. And as the door slowly, deliberately, swung shut with a final echoing thud, Elias heard the last terrifying sound from the house. A soft, satisfied, wet giggle. He ran until his lungs burned, never once looking back at the house that kept its own sickening watch.